When it comes to hiring, there's a well-worn saying, hire slow, fire fast. In this video, I'm going to put my own unique Nomad Capitalist spin on how to hire people when you're doing business internationally. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson, and if you'd like to personally work with my team and I to develop your own Nomad Capitalist strategy, whether it's for offshore companies, hiring people overseas, or anything related to global citizenship, you can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. But let's talk about hire slow, fire fast. It's been very interesting to me to watch as we've built Nomad Capitalist from me to a couple dozen people now. And I've been looking back at that progression and a lot of mistakes that I've made because I'm not a human resources expert, but I do think I've come across some ideas that are worth sharing with you. And I've seen all the mistakes that I've made in this process. I also look back at past businesses I ran when I was in the United States, and I realized I probably could have used some of this guidance as well. But I was reading an interesting book recently that made me revisit this concept. It was by Dave Ramsey, who we've spoken about on this channel before. The book was called Entree Leadership, and I really like the book because it talks to people like myself and probably like you who are the 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs who we don't want to hire corporate drones, but yet we also don't want to do what I have admittedly done in the past, which is hire some real super type A people who basically want to take over your business and push you out of the way. You don't want those people, nor do you want the people just to sit around and peck at a keyboard. And so I liked his perspective. There are things I don't agree with. I'm not exactly sure that I, as a person who's go, could deal with a 90-day hiring process, although I see the merit in it. One thing he did point out, though, is that when you do hire someone, you want to have a 90-day probation period. Pretty common. But he put it in a very interesting way. He said, the team member is on probation, and for the team member, the company is on probation. And that made a lot of sense to me because it's interesting when you hire people to be in your company, they can go through the interview process. And yes, the interview process can be adapted and can be handled in a way to where you get people to open up a little bit. You don't ask the same old usual questions that people recite their go-to answers to. You dive in more deeply. For us, you do a personality test and you kind of understand what personality the person has and if it's a good fit for this particular role. You have them do tasks to demonstrate that they are a good fit. But you're never going to get it perfectly right. You're never going to be able to screen out everybody who's not a good fit. And so the probation period is a great way to say, let's see if we're a good fit. They're never going to entirely know your company values. As much as I tell people our company values and I tell people how we operate and I tell them that I'm not like any corporate environment you've ever worked in, it just doesn't sink in with some people, right? You can't entirely tell until you see them in action. And they can't tell until they see you in action, because as much as I tell them, maybe they don't believe me. They've never had someone be so direct as to say, here's how we work and here's what we expect, and actually mean it. And so when you bring someone on the team who's not working, you do need to get rid of them quickly. And so the Nomad Capitalist spin on this is when you're hiring people overseas, what you're going to first need to adapt to is the situation that you're dealing with different cultures. I remember, we brought someone on our team once where we did a whole series of interviews. I had a guy helping us with HR and interviewing who was from Australia. At one point, we had a woman from Canada as well. We've used different people to do interviews. But at one point, I said, hey, you know what? Oh, you happen to be in the same city as a few of my team members? Go in and talk to them. And I remember one time we got glowing remarks from the Canadian, from the Australian, but the person who was on the ground, the girl who was 23 years old who was working for us, said, I'm not so sure. We ignored her at our peril. And what happened was we brought someone on who was a very nice person, but everyone in the office soon started saying, she's got a very villager mentality. Now, I'm not trying to be pejorative, but the challenge was, and I still don't even understand what this mentality is, but everyone on the team who was from the city said, we can't work with this girl because she's doing things differently. We don't really understand what's going on. And she's just, she's maybe not cut out for this job. And we ultimately had to get rid of her because what happened was, I would say, hey, do this. And she'd be like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna do it. And she was great and she was very agreeable and it was a lovely person. And the work would just never get done. And I would just, the more clearly we would make it, the more difficult it would be. Now, to this day, I don't know that any of my friends from the United States or the Canadian or the Australian can still describe this kind of ephemeral feeling that our other team member had, the team member who warned us about this person. And that's the exact point. When you're hiring folks overseas, you may not understand the different culture. There's certain cultures where you give people tasks and you expect them to be independent, but their culture is not set up to be independent. Certain Asian cultures are very hierarchical. I spent a lot of time in China, and in China, the boss is revered, but the boss also has to save face. And so people are used to the boss coming in, very cold and steely determination, and just, making sure people are doing their work, monitoring their work. For those of us in the Western world, we don't have as hierarchical of a culture. We have more flat leadership structures. Now, I think having some hierarchy is a good thing. This thing where everything's flat and like we're all, one with the world, I don't really like that. But if you're hiring people in certain parts of Asia, for example, you may not be able to give them a task and say, hey, here's your project, come back in a month, because their culture means that they're expecting more leadership. They're expecting you to be on top of them. Other people from different cultures just have certain mindsets that you have to be mindful of. And so I think, hiring overseas is a great opportunity. Again, I can pay less than I would pay to hire people where I'm from. They get paid more money because we pay them more than anybody else where they are, and we offer cool benefits. We can do things like spa allowances. They can go and get massages, stuff like that. That's unique, and we can avoid some of the nonsense that we deal with hiring in the West. But what I've learned is, if someone's not a fit, it's not going to get better. One of the biggest things that I've had to learn to rely on in business is intuition. I have ignored intuition so many times at my peril because I either wanted someone or something to work out, or because I was told I was being unreasonable by someone. I remember, I used to have people who were in my life who would say, oh, Andrew, that person, they're not a bad person. You can't remove them from your company. Removing someone from your team, firing someone is not about saying you're a terrible human being. It's not about saying you're a terrible worker. We've had people that have worked for us that just didn't match what we're looking for. I'm very go, go, go. I want it all done today. And I have at times run into people who I think would do a great job somewhere else, but they're much more what's called methodical. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that the challenge as entrepreneurs, because there are so few of us, we listen to all the other voices that say, oh, firing someone is bad. Why? Because 98% of people are employees and don't want to be fired, right? And they view it as an attack on themselves. It's not an attack on themselves. Listen, if someone's not a fit in your company, you need to free them to go find that better fit. I remember early on in my Nomad Capitalist journey, watching a movie that I've shown to people is, here's how I've been living. I've later shown them Up in the Air with George Clooney. He goes around the United States firing people. And as much of a negative light as the movie shows that activity in, he makes a good point. You need to be freed to go out and do what maybe is really matters to you. You should look at this as a blessing, as an opportunity to go do something better. And if you look at it from that perspective, you'll be much more open to removing people who aren't a cultural fit with your team, who aren't a cultural fit with your company and what you expect. But what I can tell you from experience is you have to bring someone in sometimes. As good as they are on paper, you've got to bring them in to really see how they work. And that once they're there, you can't teach them certain stuff. I've had people, largely consultants and freelancers, but people in the team as well, where they don't understand go, go, go. They think taking 2 months to do a task that someone else could do in 2 days is acceptable. And no matter how much you try and say, hey, come on, let's get it going, this is slow, they don't understand. And what you're going to get is pushback on you. No, you're not reasonable. Come on, we can't be moving at a fast pace. My company, we call it the cocaine pace. Someone kind of pejoratively called it the cocaine pace. And I said, yes, that's our pace. We're at the cocaine pace. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And, I've had to really be careful to make sure we're keeping that pace in place. people who just don't understand, you're not going to tell them. In many cases, there's not a way just to tell. Sometimes you can train people. I'm not saying don't train people. What I'm saying is if someone doesn't instinctively understand what you're trying to do, they may not be a fit. And what I can also tell you from experience is that the longer you keep a bad fit around, the angst, the anxiety, the anger is going to build up in your body and you're going to be frustrated. It's the same thing as being in a bad relationship. It just builds up. And when you release it, you feel great. And you know what? Sometimes you're going to find other people on your team are going to say, I don't know what took you so long. Because if you're an entrepreneur, chances are you're thinking, what if I get rid of this person? The other people on the team are going to be upset that, John's leaving. And then you get rid of John and they're like, oh my God, Andrew, like, oh, well, what were you thinking? That John was terrible. And sometimes even John is happy. Sometimes John is like, yeah, you know what? Not a fit. So what I want you to do, again, especially when you're hiring in cross-cultural situations, don't let the angst build up in your body. Follow your intuition and free people who aren't a fit for your company, your team, and your mission. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalist. I wrote this book, which you can find on Amazon, to distill a lot of the stuff we talk about in these videos and a lot of the stuff I've learned over the last decade plus, traveling all around the world, teaching you about how to legally reduce your taxes, build your personal freedom, and create wealth faster. Definitely get a copy of this book if you want to learn more. Now, if you want to watch more videos, make sure you subscribe to our channel and make sure you click the notifications bell so you never miss one of our new videos with more tips on how to go where you're treated best. And if you're already a 6- or 7-figure entrepreneur and you'd like to put these strategies in place for yourself, go to nomadcapitalist.com and learn about how I can help you.